Hey guys, welcome to my Full Moon Friday series where I talk about some of the full moon features from my personal collection. Now, if you aren't familiar with Full Moon Entertainment, it is a long running production company known for releasing cult horror movies like the Puppet Master series and other direct to video cult classics. They were popular among B horror fans in the 80s and 90s, and Full Moon still operates to this day and still has a cult following, although I would say the quality of movies has declined. If you are already a Full Moon fan, this might be a fun blast from the past for you. If you're unfamiliar, these videos will kind of help you get started with some recommendations.
Oh, it's Eli. So we're going to start off with. I didn't pick this. I didn't do any of this in order, but we're going to kick it off with the Killjoy trilogy. As you can see, I have one of these combo packs from Echo Bridge that were really popular in the early to mid 2000s. So this has the first three Killjoys. Those are the only ones I've seen and the only ones that I have. So yeah, here we go.
Killjoy from 2000 was directed by Craig Ross Jr. and stars Angel Vargas as Killjoy for the first and last time. Killjoy is about an evil clown of the same name who could be summoned, almost similar to Candyman, although the similarities pretty much stop there. So in this movie, Killjoy is summoned by Michael, who performs a ritual before he is murdered and brings chaos to those who killed him. Now, I'm not really a fan of this movie, but I can't really call it boring since it did keep my attention pretty much through the entire time. Killjoy himself is kind of like a combination of Pennywise and Homie the Clown. Bonus points if you remember Homie. If I didn't already know about them, I would never think that there would be Killjoy sequels, but there are, so the franchise obviously has some kind of cult following. I'm going to give Killjoy a 3 out of 10. It kept me entertained, but there are much better things to watch. Are there any Killjoy fans out there? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Killjoy 2 came out in 2002 and was this time directed by Douglas Snaufer and Tammy Sutton. Killjoy would be played this time by Trent Haga. Two police officers bring a handful of criminals to an abandoned shelter being renovated as part of their community service duties. They encounter trouble along the way, and Killjoy is summoned by a mysterious woman practicing black magic. The portrayal of Killjoy by Angel Vargas in the first movie was entertaining enough, and Trent Haga's version is pretty similar here, although the reason for him being summoned makes less sense. Killjoy 2 is pretty low budget, like the first one, and like the first movie, it's fairly entertaining. It didn't win me over, but I would never call it boring, so there is that. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 3 out of 10. Same score as part 1. I'd only recommend this to fans of clown horror movies with nothing really better to watch. Killjoy 3 came out in 2010 and so far is the last in the franchise that I have in my collection. I don't know if I will pursue the others, but I will say that this is by far my favorite of the first three. I will also say that I can't believe that any were made beyond the first one, since I really didn't see future potential, but what do I know? Killjoy 3 was directed by John Lashago, who took over the Killjoy universe, and while this movie is far from perfect, it's totally watchable and is better than the first two combined. I sort of get Rob Zombie vibes from this one. The Killjoy character this time around is more vulgar, clearly trying to take things in a Captain Spaulding type direction, but Sid Haig he is not. I kind of like how this time around, instead of just Killjoy as the protagonist, we are introduced to his clown minions, Batty Boop, Punchy the Hobo Clown, and Freak Show the Mime. It's kind of like clown versions of the Cenobites from Hellraiser, and it's just more entertaining than Killjoy by himself, even if he is a bit more charismatic in this one. I'm going to give Killjoy 3 a 3.5 out of 10, just slightly higher than I gave the first two. I can't fully recommend it, but if you're bored and out of stuff to watch, I suppose you could do worse.
All right, next we're going to do Lurking Fear from 1994. This is the first time it had ever been on DVD in 2005. I believe this was part of a box set. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the first time it was on DVD, it was like a full moon compilation box set. Original poster and VHS look like that. And yeah, here we go.
Lurking Fear came out, like I said, in 1994, based off of the H.P. Lovecraft story of the same name. It was written and directed by C. Courtney Joyner, who was a fairly prolific writer in the early 2000s and whose directorial debut was Trancers 3 just 2 years prior. Lurking Fear stars John Finch, Blake Adams, Ashley Lawrence, and horror legend Jeffrey Combs. Fresh out of prison, John Martens returns to Lefferts Corner where he grew up to visit the town mortician, a friend of his late father's. The mortician, played by Vincent Schiavelli, had been saving by request of John's father a map to a graveyard where he allegedly buried some money that he had stolen. John reluctantly takes the map, not knowing that a group of criminals are looking for it. Being a massive H.P. Lovecraft fan and a fan of the Lurking Fear story, I was kind of disappointed with this movie. It has some parallels with the story, but not enough to do it justice. The creatures look okay, but not really that scary. Most of the entertainment this movie provides is due to the performance of Jeffrey Combs. He is drinking and smoking every second of his screen time and chews the scenery effortlessly. It's awesome. If he wasn't in this movie, it would be nearly unwatchable, I think. I'm going to give The Lurking Fear a 4 out of 10. It's mildly entertaining and worth watching for Jeffrey Combs. Otherwise, it's kind of a sloppy mess that just doesn't really work and is kind of an insult to H.P. Lovecraft. If you are going to adapt an H.P. Lovecraft story, atmosphere is a key element you need, and this movie just doesn't have it. At best, it's a mildly entertaining, schlocky B movie.
And next, we're going to be talking about Dollman. Yes, it's another one of those Echo Bridge compilation DVDs. One that I bought, I think at a, I think at a pawn shop or something like that. Back in the day, where people would write their name on everything. I'm so glad people don't do that anymore. But I guess the average person doesn't buy books or DVDs or CDs anymore, like they used to in the early 2000s. But finally, so far, for the first time in this video, a movie that I actually really, really like. Yeah, Dollman.
Dollman was released in 1991 and was directed by B-movie legend Albert Pune, already known for directing cult classics like The Sword and the Sorcerer from 1982 and Cyborg from 1989. The script was written by Charles Band himself, the head honcho of Full Moon. Dollman stars Tim Thomerson as hard as a coffin nail police officer Brick Bardo of the planet Arturos, and gang leader Braxton Red, played by Jackie Earle Haley. While pursuing Sprug, Brick's arch nemesis, via spaceship, they both pass through an energy band and are shrunk down to 13 inches tall and sent to the planet Earth, crash landing in New York City. Back in the 80s and 90s, New York City was one of the most dangerous places in the US, and the Bronx was kind of the center of all that. This movie gives you a little glimpse of what all that looked like back then. It looked like a war zone, and it was the perfect location for a gritty Albert Pune movie. Dollman has the drab, washed-out look that Albert loved to use, and many of the scenes are shot amongst rubble and crumbled buildings, giving it a near post-apocalyptic look, even though this is not that kind of movie, but it has that same desolate and hopeless type of atmosphere. For some of the locals in these neighborhoods, the apocalypse might as well have happened. It probably wouldn't have changed much at all. So, after landing on Earth, Brick crosses paths with Debbie, played by Kamala Lopez, a tough single mom that refuses to give up. She lets Brick hide in her apartment while thugs are looking for him after teaming up with Sprug. Brick's spaceship is damaged, he's 13 inches tall. How's he going to get out of this mess? There would be a Dollman sequel, which was the Dollman Demonic Toys crossover a couple years later, but it's a shame that Pune didn't continue with this franchise. In my mind, Tim Thomerson should be mentioned alongside guys like Clint Eastwood, Charles Bronson, and Tom Atkins, but he just never got to that level, unfortunately. Jackie Earle Haley has always given a good performance in every role, and he plays a very believable loose cannon type street thug here, absolutely perfect for the part. You really find yourself rooting for Debbie, so I also give credit to Kamala Lopez for her performance, and of course I have to mention Frank Collison's portrayal of Sprug, the perfect comic book-esque villain who is only a head at this point after having his body obliterated by Brick in the past. He has that classic I'm going to take over the world type over the top evil persona, but doesn't quite have the brains to be a true evil mastermind.
It'll never happen. Somehow you'll fuck it up. You always fuck it up.
I'm going to give Dollman a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoy it, and I would love to have more from the franchise, but it definitely has flaws, and I'm just not able to give it a higher score than that. 7.5 out of 10 is nothing to sneeze at, though, and I would recommend this to any fans of sci fi or action movies.